Genshin go baby, what's good guys? Yoku here, and a lot of you similar to ED, shout out to my boy ED, but a lot of you guys were asking me what are my plans for Honkai Staro. I'm assuming you mean the release plan thing that's going around that I've seen other people do, which is fine, right? I don't necessarily have a release plan, but I don't not have a release plan, if that makes sense. If I could elaborate on it, what I mean by that is after playing the beta, there were a lot of things that I wrapped up or wrote down that might be some mistakes that I realized I made that I definitely won't make them going into the official release of the game. So maybe that's something that I could tell you guys, is that what I plan on doing once the game officially releases. And I don't know, maybe it's not too bad. So for starters, account wise, I'm not re-rolling more than 3 or 4 times, 5 times tops, right? It really depends. I do believe that it comes out on a Tuesday or Wednesday, something like that night, which means I'll have the rest of that following day at work. So pretty much a good 5, maybe 8 hours, depending on how slow work is, in order for me to just re-roll. So if I am able to get what I want, I don't mind re-rolling while I'm at work, because I'm working anyway, so it's kind of passive. So I'll do that. And if I get what I'm looking for, which in this case, the characters that I'm shooting for the most obviously are Zila, but Zila is my lowest priority simply because I'm not going to be a free-to-play player. I could easily just buy her and I have no issues doing that. But the main thing that I'm looking for is Bronya, Bailu, or Welt. One of those 3 characters are definitely the 3 that I'm aiming for. Bailu being the lowest on that totem pole, but I do like Bailu because Bailu's sick. She's a little demon, bro. I love Bailu. But as a top priority, it's definitely Bronya and then Welt. And the reason that I want those 2 is simply because I'm planning for the future. So right now, for the first month of the game, Zila is definitely going to be the one that I'm going for. Now, if I end up pulling Yanqing, similar to how I got in the beta, then no complaints there, right? If I get Yanqing, I'm starting the account immediately. I'm not going to worry about trying to get out Bronya or Welt. They'll come when they come. But Yanqing is great for me because Yanqing is more of an immediate Zila in a way. I don't think that Yanqing outperforms Zila, similar to how some other people are saying. And at the time when I did talk about Yanqing, I do think that there are some benefits to Yanqing versus Zila. But I think overall, like towards the end of where the first half or that later half of the beta was going, I think Zila starts to outperform Yanqing if you build them correctly. Only because there are things in the game or enemies in the game that start to apply anti-debuffs. So if, my whole thing with Yanqing is freeze, crit rate up, get the crit damage up, and then obliterate everybody, I take their turns by freezing them. And, in Zila's case, Zila takes the turn by eliminating the enemy, basically. And so Yanqing doesn't have to worry about getting the KO because he can just keep stealing their turns. I'm like, cool. Well, there are enemies later on in the game that are like, hey, well, I don't want to get frozen, so I'm going to have a 50% reduction to hit rate or a 40% reduction to whatever your side effect is, which in this case would be freeze. So that's kind of where I am sitting with Yanqing versus Zila. But in terms of what else is going on with that, Zila is definitely the priority when it comes to the team that I want to build. And like I said, I have no issues paying for it, so I'm just going to do that. Now, I will admit that if I'm not able to get that account, whatever account I'm shooting for, by the end of that workday, right? So that night I'll reroll a little bit, and then the following day I'll probably reroll a little bit. But I'm not a fan of having 27 different accounts. I just want to play the game. I hate rerolling, to be honest, especially when it's super tedious and it takes an hour to 2 hours before you can actually get into the reroll process. Now, if there was a way for me to just wipe the account and then keep rerolling on the same account, I'd absolutely do that. Hopefully Mihoyo allows us to do something like that. Maybe the delete process for the account is super quick, or you don't even have to sign in. I don't know. Maybe they'll bring the guest feature back. Who knows? But as of right now, that day is pretty much my testing day, my rerolling day, trying to shoot for what I can. If I can't get it, I do know that there are a group of people that are going to be rerolling as well. And maybe we can get together and, if they get a Bronya and they don't want Bronya, or they get a spare, I might go ahead and just yoink one of those accounts from them, and then we'll start from there. But regardless, moving along from the character thing, my main plan is, of course, to take care of the account from start to finish. I don't want to waste materials. I think that was something that I did early on in the beta because I really didn't know how important they were, right? I didn't know what was what during the beta. And what the game doesn't do immediately is tell you what these things are used for, or rather who these particular items, pieces of materials, and things like that will be used for. So you collect a lot of things early on, which means if you wanted to, and this is what I did, so I'm speaking exactly from experience, I was able to take all of my characters from level 0 to level 40, no problem. All of the materials in the game, from the point of me going from the beginning of the game to just about the end of World 1, which is Bellabog. That whole chapter, that whole story before starting World 2, I had almost all of my characters at least level 40. And going into it now, I'm like, okay, well, that's a lot of material that I could have used to bring 2 or 3 characters from level 40 to, you know, level 50 or 60. I could have upgraded their traces and things like that. So I'm going in this with like, let me pick a particular character that I really want to focus on and then build around them. In this case, it's going to be Zila. I do know that I'm going to be building Jing Yuan later on. So once Jing Yuan's banner drops, I'm still going to be trying to build characters that support Jing Yuan and Zila at the same time. So that'll most likely just be 2, right? Like I said, if I get Bailu or Welt, those would be the 2 that I really focus on. If I get Bronya or Bailu, those would be the 2 that I really focus on. And then I'll really prioritize building them regardless of the DPS that I have available. And then I'll build Zila, you know, as a 3rd option or, you know, 1st option, whatever. But the Bronya and the healer in this case, or shielder, right? I could go with March 7th. If I get a lot of March 7ths, I'll build up March 7th. If I get a lot of Natashas, I'll build into Natasha. It really just depends on how the game benefits me, or what it gives me rather, in order to work with the game. And then from there, I'll just shift the DPS, right? My DPS will no longer be Zila, but it'll be Yangqing. And then there's someone else that I'm really gonna, or not Yangqing, my bad, Jing Yuan. Ting Yun is more than likely gonna be a support character that I use with Jing Yuan. Man, there's too many of these. You guys know what I'm trying to say, man. All right. So when I work with Persona, I want to use Ting Yun, which is the Fox Girl, because she directly buffs lightning units, and she also gives you 50% on your burst, right? And then she's gonna give you, her skill is gonna amplify you with the attack boost and stuff like that. And so while Bronya is gonna let me go again, what Ting Yun might be able to do is allow me to just outright obliterate something in 1 turn. So instead of needing 2 turns, Ting Yun will just let me obliterate it in that single turn, maybe a 2nd turn, who knows, whatever the case may be. So I'm gonna mess around with that. I'm gonna experiment a lot more when I do get those 2 in my hands, to be able to determine who is the support character I want to use with Jing Yuan. And if that's the case, I'll probably end up doing 2 different teams by having them built within 2 months or so, where I can focus on Zila and then have her with Bronya, and then Bailu, or, you know, whoever my shielder is gonna be, then I'll work on them. But Jing Yuan to be separate from that, and it'll just kind of go into there. Some of you guys asked me about light cones, and light cones are super dope, but I don't think that you need them. I think we're going into a pathway where this is very in between, right? Genshin Impact entered a meta, and I think the video is still on my channel somewhere. If you guys ever want to look at it, I'll make the bubble right here. But a while ago, whenever Genshin Impact was coming out, or rather when they were releasing Yelan, and Yelan had the Aqua Simulacra, that was the first time that I realized, okay, I see Genshin Impact going towards like a little bit of a Honkai Impact meta, right? Where Honkai has the thing, the fallacy, the idea, the concept, if you will, that weapon plus character equals this is the way that this character is supposed to perform. And so in Honkai Impact, you know, you'll get Kiana, or like the Flame Hersher, right? And then it's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, she's great, but you really want her weapon, which is the fire sword you see in all the, you know, screenshots and movies and films and all that. It's like, okay, cool. Well, what happens when you get her weapon? Well, now she can actually do her skill. Like, there's skills attached to those weapons in Honkai Impact that the character otherwise would not have the access to without that weapon. So when it comes to Star Rail, it's not the skills that they're attached to, but it's like some cracked out stuff that allows them to do things, right? So Jing Yuan's light cone, and I'm going off of memory here, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below. Jing Yuan's light cone allows him, or rather allows his persona to just buff the hell out of itself. Whenever Jing Yuan does something, the persona directly gets buffed from that. And so now their crit rate goes up, their attack percent goes up, the crit damage of what the persona does goes up, and then it stacks. So every time you do a follow-up attack, Jing Yuan gets stronger. Well, every time Jing Yuan gets stronger, the persona gets stronger. So they directly work, right? They correlate with one another. And so that light cone, it doesn't give him a new skill, but it unlocks the potential of the 2 of them working together to the point where, like, theoretically, if you built them right, they could solo everything by themselves. Granted, the thing would have to be weak to lightning. Most of the time, Jing Yuan doesn't care, especially because lightning has a little bit of the DOT, and he just does so much damage that he just kind of ignores shields. But if you could break the shield, then it's that much more damage. And of course, there are other characters, right? Natasha's light cone allows her to be more of a healer, if you will, more of a support, but it's not just heals. It just adds a little bit more flavor. So all in all, that seems to be a really in between when it comes to Genshin Impact and Honkai Impact. And I think that's where I am. So I don't mind snatching light cones. There are a bunch of free options that are going to be in the game for the 5-star light cones as well. I think we have 3 or 4 paths right now. We don't have all the paths available to us. So of course you might get, you might get a snipe on the standard banner when it comes to that, and you might get one, I don't know. But getting 5-star light cones, I think, is going to be great. I don't think there's going to be a point where you don't want the light cone. If you can afford it, if you can get it, by all means grab it. But going into the game, and this is kind of like an early sneak peek of some of the mistakes that I would tell you in a later video. But going into the game, if you know that you're prepping for Jing Yuan, for instance, and you're listening to this video like, oh, his release plan is this, what should mine be? If you know you want Jing Yuan, then you should spend everything from the start of the game to Jing Yuan on Jing Yuan. And when I say everything, I mean grab Jing Yuan and then grab his light cone. Whatever you have left over after that, then you can go on and start grabbing Eidolons if you wish. But truth be told, you don't need extra copies of him. They're great, but him plus the weapon that's all you need. And that's going to be the way for a lot of characters. Them plus the weapon is all you're going to need. The Eidolons are just a huge factor in terms of like, yeah, I got some extra sauce, so what? But that's going to be all I got for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and you learned a little bit more about what it is that EO plans on doing when the game comes out. If you have any more direct questions, by all means, ask them down below. I've been trying this thing where I answer some of your questions in later videos or in the community post. But regardless, like the video, comment, subscribe. We're on our road to 10K, which you guys started this, not me, but I kind of like it. So if we can get 10K, that's kind of hot. Anyway, join my Discord. There's a pinned comment in the description, or a pinned comment with the link down below. I can't say my user outro because it's inappropriate for YouTube. Smell you later.